Hey everyone, this is Edison Guzman with the Business Learning Center. And today I am introducing you to Steve Powell of S. Powell Associates. Steve, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So today, actually, we're going to talk about branding and advertising. Okay, this is something that we've worked on with clients on. I know you have a very long history of it. Can you first tell me a little bit about your history with branding, advertising, and what makes you, someone that should be listened to?
What makes me so special?
Yes.
The answer to that is my brand. And my brand is based on close to 40 years in the business. As a designer, art director, finally creative director, overseeing both sides of the creative process and producing for some big companies like Kraft and Auto and several others that you can name, but also for smaller accounts that you've never heard of, but are now established and feel good about how they're represented to the public.
Excellent. I know you've dealt with a lot of what I call the big boys, and, and some of the little guys as well. But tell
Well,
me,
the problem with the big boys is sometimes they're so big that they can't get out of their own way.
yes,
So what could be smart sales and smart promotion just gets all muddied up in all the big hurrah that's built around branding these days.
right, right. So since we're talking about branding, what is branding?
Branding. I'm going to give you three different definitions because it really depends on how you're trying to look at it. The dictionary says branding is an image or a graphic or an icon that establishes a visual identity. Most people disagree with that in the business. Uh, Wikipedia, I think it was, yeah, Wikipedia was saying that it could be a graphic or an icon, but it also could be a slogan. The best answer I have heard, bar none, is from Richard Branson of Virgin Atlantic. And his answer just says, it's what people buy. And that's really what it comes down to. It's about putting on a good impression. Why do you put on a jacket? If you're a man or a woman, why do you dress up for business? There's a reason you do that. You're branding yourself as a professional. Well, that's really the very, very basic bottom line of just what is branding. What do you want people to think of you? How do you want to get them to think of you is the hard one. But what do you want people to think of you? Do you want them to think of you as a modern, sophisticated organization? Do you want them to think of you as a small boutique? Who are you? What do you want them to think you are, really are? We won't go there either. But who you think you want them to think you are? That's branding.
Yeah, so branding has so many different aspects to it. But do small business owners need to brand themselves as well, or can they just
Oh
wing it the way
yeah.
most of them are?
No, that's one of the things about branding we hear all the time is oh yeah, well, if I was General Foods or if I was GE or if I but even the small shop, you're already branded. You got to remember that. Anytime somebody calls you on the phone, anytime somebody visits you at work or you visit them in a coffee shop, any contact they have with you, your product or your service, and it's so widespread that people, you want to put a finger on it and say, "Ooh, it's that," and it's really just not that clean of a decision.
So, what do you believe is the biggest challenge nowadays to small business owners, or
Well,
any business actually to brand themselves?
you know, uh, modern advertising was kind of birthed around the 1920s. That's when all the General Foods and the consumer goods companies all started building these things. They had the icons, they had the puppets, they had the tap dancing cigarette packs. They had it all, but it all started rising then. And what's happened is it was so much simpler back then. Slap a cartoon tiger on a box, and man, kids want that cereal. It's that easy. Today there might be 20 boxes on the shelf. And when you're talking about small businesses, you may think of yourself as a small business person as very unique. But unless you can explain that and explain that quickly to your audience, it doesn't matter because they're going to look at you as, oh, just another pizza shop. Oh, just another counselor or consultant. And to differentiate yourself through your sales message is hard, but to differentiate yourself before they even meet you is almost impossible without a good brand.
Yeah, especially now that I mean, there's so many tools online that you can use, like Canva is one of the things that come to mind. I see so many business owners using that, but I mean, I'm sure you've seen it too. People go on Canva, it's easy to design anything, but are they using the right colors? Are they using the right font? Are they, I mean, like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how
I
can you
can, but
help business owners? How can you help business owners use a tool that they can use freely, but help them out a little bit.
well, you've got different things going on there. Tools these days are better than they've ever been. And you don't have to know what I used to have to know in order to do what I used to do. You don't need that anymore. There are just so many options for the user. Even if you just want to stick with the big boys, Adobe for $50 a month will give you every tool you could imagine and then some. But of course, there are so many other options out there. You'd probably know that better than I would. But in generating things, tools are only as smart as the person using them. A hammer will only hammer a nail if you aim the hammer correctly and swing your arm correctly. It's the same with any of these tools. The fact that you have the tools available now that we never had before means that you can create professional, sophisticated results if you're willing to learn. But if you're not willing to put in the time and effort to learn, even the basic items like colors, when should something be red or blue or green? And if you tell me one more time that my daughter likes turquoise, so that's why I want to go with turquoise, my head is just going to explode. It's based on communications. It's not based on art. And your whole brand is like that. You can play crazy with your brand. You can say, if you're a store owner, well, I'm usually open at 9 unless I'm here at 10, and I usually close at 6 unless I leave at 4. And so by the time you're through with all of this, a person who has just walked up to your storefront is walking away with a bad impression of your brand. So all these tools are great, but you can still mess up. AI just makes it easier for people to do the wrong thing.
That's interesting. AI makes it easier for you to mess up. I'm gonna steal that quote in one of my workshops.
All right.
All right, so let's talk about since we're talking about branding and advertising and everything else, things have changed, obviously. The internet has changed everything, and now AI is changing everything all over again. And it's all part of evolution. But one thing that's very consistent, and it's something that you mentioned earlier, is how the person brands themselves. So when I teach a course, I usually tell people branding is everything that you do. Branding is everything how people perceive what you do, when you do it, how you do it. Like you just gave the example about if you're inconsistent with when you open your store and close your store, people are not gonna, that's your brand right there. Your brand is inconsistency. So
Right.
if you're creating with Canva or Photoshop or Adobe Express or whatever, you still have to do the right things. So give me a few things that people should do, like PNGs versus JPEGs, okay? Like I don't want you to get too technical, but that's
All
one of
right.
my biggest pet peeves out there. Can you give me some of those little
All
things?
right. All right. Let me give you a few of those. One of them is colors, and not just the choice of what color to use, which is key to any identity. You know, things like red sound like emergency. It's just how we perceive these things. Green, well, people think of money. Blue is blue sky. It's also the most conservative corporate color. So you can go down this line and say, ooh, based on what I want people to think and see of my brand, I want to use this color. That's great, as long as the color works. Don't take red and put it on a black background and expect people to be able to read words. So some of it is logic, some of it is just be sensitive. The other part, though, that's so key is know where you're going to be seen. There's a difference in colors on the computer that many people don't realize. CMYK, people hear this. It's cyan, magenta, yellow, and K stands for black. So, where did this come from? That's all about printing. What if you're only going to be online? Well, now you need RGB, red, green, blue. How many dots per inch? And without going into details, basically things for online are 72 DPI at full size, dots per inch. For print, it's 300 up to 600 dots per inch. And it's this other color format. So it's not difficult if you understand the differences. But if you try to get one to do the other, you're going to get muddy prints and you're going to get dark screens and you're not going to know why. Uh,
Yes.
does that does that kind of help?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is that some people take something off the web and they try to make a physical flyer, right, to put on a wall somewhere, and
Hmm.
they don't understand why it's blurry. And
Yeah,
72 DPI to 300 DPI, that by itself, if someone doesn't understand what that is that that's the dots per inch. If you have 72, that's less dots per inch. If you have 300, that's more dots per inch. So anything that you take that looks blurry, that means that you didn't do it properly. There are different ways of doing that.
yeah. When you blow things up, particularly noticeable in print even more than online, but it's there online as well. When you blow things up without taking any kind of extra tool to make it right, yeah, you're going to get pixelated, blurry stuff every time. But as an example, I love your image behind your face there. That's a strong part of branding. But for just a minute, can you slide over just a little bit so your viewers can see this? Great. So look at these colors. Why do these colors work? Now, of course, Edison and I know each other a long time. I know he knows this stuff, but speaking generally, look at the gold and how the golds pick up from the blue background, which then picks up on a white ring around it. The whole thing makes you want to look into the middle. And now all of those black lines are defining that on a medium tint background. My point is that's a great choice of color for visibility. It's a great choice of color for memorability and for snap recognition.
These are things that, of course, I've learned over the years, but you've done this all like 40 years is a lot of time in your life.
Oh, now
And
you're
I
making
gotta
me,
tell,
yeah, you're going to point that out, are you? You're going to point
well,
that
that
out.
means that you're
You're right.
so experienced.
I'm not 35 anymore. And I haven't been for about 3 years now. uh, but
Well, the
yes,
thing
it's
is,
true. You know, the thing that I get out of my career right now, looking and working for clients, is that I have done this. And the thing that I love so much is so many people think, well, the young people know all the tools. They're the ones with all the creativity. They're the ones with all the get up and go. And it's all about young, young, young. And all I can say is after 40 years, I know what works. I know what doesn't work. I know how to attract attention without offending. And more importantly than anything else, I know that marketing and graphic design hasn't changed, only the tools. So the same marketing principles that were valid 60 years ago are still the same principles being used today. It's just what tools do we use and what looks and what trends.
No, that is something that I preach every single time. I mean, like people like you and I who have been in the trenches for, like I've been in it for over 30 years myself. We stay on top of what's working, what's not working, but the foundation of everything is pretty much still there. It's like anyone, I could go into any business and I could tell them how they could grow their business. You could go into any business and you could tell them how to just change their branding, and that itself will change how people perceive them. And this is one thing that companies do all the time, and small businesses don't look at this. The bigger companies, they rebrand themselves every few years. Coke does it, Pepsi does it. I mean, like Nike's the only one that hasn't changed that swoosh like forever, ever since they spent all that money and time and effort, doing that.
Yeah, but if you really look at rebranding of the big guys, they're smart enough not to totally get away from their brand.
Right.
And that's something else. I feel like I become a little too much of a lecturer onto my clients, but clients get bored and clients want to see new stuff. And that's great if you need new stuff. But if you've got good stuff, don't walk away from it easily. I mean, there's always the story of the Energizer Duracell bunny rabbit, and everybody knows the bunny, but people get confused. Is it Duracell? Is it Energizer? And it turned out Duracell had it. Duracell let their trademarks expire because they didn't care anymore because they were bored. Along came Energizer who said, well, if they won't use it, we will. And because legally they could, they took it over and they began advertising with it. And it wasn't until they went to court that they had to split it down the middle. You've got one company in the United States, you've got another company in Europe that owns the rights to this. And it's because now you have two competitors in different locations who own the same trademark. How sick is that? You don't walk away from something that's working. And if you rebrand, you remember the old and incorporate it into the new.
Yeah, that's so true because I've done a lot of advertising over the years, and sometimes an ad that continuously works, the business owner gets tired of it, and because they're tired of it, they stop it and they switch to something new, and then they wonder why sales went down.
Yeah. Brand impact is one of the big buzzwords going around these days. It's been around forever, but it seems like it's a hot one now. If you go online, you see article after article. And all that is the same thing we've always been talking about. How much impact have you had on your audience? And do they remember you? Do they think of, well, there's a pyramid. At the very top, do they think of you first? Underneath that is, do they remember you if they see something about you? Number three is, well, I know they're out there. I kind of heard the name. And the fourth is none. And that recognition factor, if you walk away from that, you're walking away from real, honest to God money. It's not like, oh, you're killing your brand. You are, but you're hurting your brand, which is going to cost you money. And that's why I believe the power of branding, the impact of branding, it's hard to measure. But if you take the time and use the analytics and really look through all this stuff, you find the same thing that marketers have been telling you forever. Yeah, if you get a bright idea that moves your product or service that people will remember you for, you're going to make more money.
Right. All right. So on that, I want to first let people know how they can contact you in case they do need some type of branding for their business or rebranding, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a brand at all, or they think that they don't. How would they contact you just to get a consultation?
The number is 845-545-1788. But again, if you go to my website, stephenpowell.com, of course, there's a contact form there, but you can also see several of examples of the work and the thought processes behind it.
Right. Yeah, that's totally different things that people don't put together, by the way. The work, like the end result, right? But what's the process behind it? What was the intent? A lot of people don't give any thought to that. They're just like, oh, let's write this font or this words and this background. It looks pretty. Let's just get it out there. And they don't
Mhm.
realize that they are creating a brand for themselves, and the brand they're creating may not be the brand that they want to portray.
Everybody has a brand. That's the thing. Going to what you're saying, a lot of people just feel like this doesn't apply to me. When you show up, I had a gutter guy come to my house to try to sell me gutters. And he looks like he just came off of a job site. He's got sawdust on his jeans, he's got a sloppy shirt on, and he's knocking on my door trying to sell me stuff. And it's a prime example. The only thing I could think of right off the bat was, dude, you need branding. I mean, I'm not going to hire this guy. I'm going to hire him when he's working because he's dressed like that. But I don't know you from Adam. You just knocked on my door. You got a homemade brochure and an estimate pad, and you look like junk. No, not interested. So people don't realize how quickly you become branded.
Yeah, well, studies show that it takes 3 seconds for someone to make a decision whether they're going to work with you or not. That's all about the brand. That's about what is your brand showing me right now within those 3 seconds. So whether it's words or a color or swoosh or whatever it is, the person's going to decide whether they're going to buy from you or not.
So let me give you one quick example from my past, some work we did. We branded and then sold firefighting. And we branded it just the way you'd think we would, with fire. And we replaced the typical recruitment brochures with fire on them, and the typical not-for-profit commercials with people and fire. And before you knew it, recruitment over a 5-month period doubled. And that was nothing more than the visual brand identity and the slogan we built, which was, I'm one of the ones. What it meant, of course, is I'm one of the special ones. I'm one that goes running toward a fire when others run out, and et cetera, et cetera. And that brand that we built a strong foundation for years to come. It worked, not because I'm brilliant, but because the general rules of marketing, when used correctly, work.
Yeah, and I know that's a huge program you have there for the firefighters to get more volunteers in-house and
Mhm.
things of that nature. So yeah, that's one thing that over the years I've seen everything that you do. I know we've worked together on a couple of projects, that have to do with digital marketing and things of that
Well,
nature. But
let me interrupt you and talk about one project that we worked on together, because I never tire of relating this to clients. It's just incredible to me. You and I have known each other for decades, and we've worked side by side on several things, but we never actually worked on one account together until the Port Authority. And for the New York, New Jersey Port Authority, we did a lot of great work. I'm very proud of 5 years of involvement with them. But all of that aside, at one point they wanted to rebrand. And you and I together built online surveys, built online questionnaires, built ways to reach out, and segmented audiences, and put out surveys and got results. Out of those results, we had a couple of hundred, was it? A couple of, I don't recall, but it was a relatively low number, like 600, I think it was, of responses we got. And we broke that all out and put that all into an outline form, and felt good about our ability to have this information. The Port Authority then said, oh, okay, this sounds like it might work. Now let's go and do a real one. And they went and spent, I'm told, $137,000 and did an in-depth survey of 10,000 people. And you can look at their results and you can look at our results, and you can't find a difference. It's a little more in depth, a little more, but nothing really different. And I think this is something that people get snowed into. They think you have to be big, you have to be throwing money away to do these surveys. And if you don't spend $100,000, you can't trust the results. I'm here to tell you, I know you're here to tell me that, of course, you can. Like everything else, there's a tool out there. There's AI now, which ultimate tools, but it's still the same thing. Learn how to use it. Awesome. Just think you can sit down and pop it off? No.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I remember that one. I really, really like enjoy that one because we did it in a way that we targeted the right people for the right for what we were looking for.
mhm.
And for the amount that they paid us versus what they paid that focus group or the other company, uh in my opinion, I think we got better results than they did, and I don't think they admitted it. But
Ah,
that's the power of advertising, looking for not just the brand because that wasn't just a branding thing. They were trying to rebrand themselves, and one of the things that they were looking for is like, what do people think about us? That's what they were looking for, and we got the tools that we used were tools much better than the tools that they were using. That's
hmm.
why we're able to do it in a way that we did and got them much better results for a lot less money. And this is what you brought to the table all the time. Whenever you take on clients, you find the way and you bring in the right people to do the right things. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that differentiates you with pretty much any other agency out there as well. You're not ashamed to bring someone in that knows they're like, bringing me in, of course, that's a no-brainer, but you've partnered up with other individuals because they always have exactly what you're looking for to get that done properly.
Well, that's always been, I worked in advertising for many years. I worked in magazine publishing for many years. But when I left the city, which was right around 9/11, 2001, not connected, but right around the same time, I left the city. And after 15 years commuting in and working on large accounts, I went out and I built my own small studio. And you're right, what made me, or at least what I felt differentiated me, was that I was a boutique shop and I knew it. I didn't want to build an empire. I didn't want to build an agency. I didn't want to grow something that I can turn around and sell down the road, although there's nothing wrong with that theory at all. But for what I was trying to do, I just wanted to create effective, strong materials that worked. And yeah, whoever I need to bring in to make that happen, I have no qualms about picking up the phone and calling. Hey, buddy, what do you think of this? I've had people turn me down because, well, I can't. One of my clients competes with one of yours, or but in the long show, that's always been the nut of my success, is
Excellent.
not assuming I can do it all.
Well, all right. So we have to end this interview because it's running a little long. However, I would love for you to give us like one final thought on branding.
Hmm. One final thought. Well, my slogan, you bring the steak, we'll create the sizzle, is a branding statement. Why? Because it addresses what I think my potential audience wants. So when you're looking at your brand, it isn't what you like. I could care less as your consultant what you like to a point, and because it's what they like. So that's my last thought on branding. It's not about you; it's about them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, with that, thank you for joining us and imparting so much wisdom on on the
Oh, I have
public
so
here.
much of it to give too.
All right, so I'm gonna leave this video interview for this time around for the Business Learning Center. And stay tuned for the next one because we're gonna have a whole bunch of different guests. And this again is just starting up. This is episode like 2, 3, 4. I don't even know what we're up to nowadays. But stay tuned. Thank you, Steve. Again, this is Steve Powell of S. Powell Associates. And thank you for being
StephenPowell.com.
StephenPowell.com. There you go. All right. So this Edison, I'll see you at the next video. Take care.
Thank you, Edison. Take care.